I'll never forget the day the HOA president tried to have me arrested at my own cabin, live streaming to hundreds like she was starring in some reality show, spinning the story that I was squatting illegally in a place I'd owned for 5 years. She stood out there smug and sure of herself, telling the sheriff's deputy to drag me off my own land. Honestly, if she'd had handcuffs, she'd have slapped them on me herself. But that woman had no idea who she was dealing with. She thought she'd stumbled onto some random trespasser. She had no clue what I owned or what I was willing to do to defend it. And let me just say, if you were watching that live stream, you caught the moment her whole world started to unravel. I was up at the cabin that day, just minding my business, flipping burgers on the grill, soaking up the peace and quiet that only comes from being miles away from suburban chaos. The air smelled like pine, fresh-cut grass, wildflowers blooming all over the place, the kind of scent that makes you forget there's even such a thing as a homeowners association. That valley was my little secret handed down by my Uncle Marcus when he passed a place I'd kept to myself, never telling anyone in Pine View how much land I really owned. I'd work all week at the furniture store, keep my head down in town, then come out here on weekends just to breathe and let the world melt away. But that afternoon, just as the burgers hit their stride, I heard tires crunching up the gravel road and saw a sheriff's cruiser rolling to a stop. My heart didn't jump from guilt, just confusion. The door opened and out stepped Deputy Ryan Foster, a guy I'd grown up with back when life was simple. He walked over, already looking apologetic, and said, "Nathan, man, I hate to do this, but we got a call about a trespasser. Lady says you're squatting here illegally." I almost choked on my beer, then burst out laughing, told him, "This is my place. I own the whole valley, for crying out loud." Ryan just shrugged. "Yeah, I figured, but I gotta check. Mind showing me your paperwork?" As I headed in for my files, I noticed some movement by the lake there. She was perfectly styled, blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, phone up high, and recording, narrating every second for her followers. She was practically sprinting toward us, waving her arms and shouting about community property. I handed Ryan my documents, and he went through them, nodding. "You're good," he said quietly, "but that's Debbie Sullivan, HOA president. She's been calling about everything lately." Sure enough, Debbie arrived panting but still broadcasting. "Officer, this man is trespassing on HOA land. The Pine View community has plans for this valley." She gestured wildly with her phone, face twisted in outrage. I swear the expression she made went viral. Later, everyone started calling it the Karen face of the year. Ryan sighed, told her everything was legal and above board, but she just about exploded, lips curling, voice rising, still live for her audience. "This is corruption. The cops are in on it." Ryan just tipped his hat and shot me a look that said, "Watch your back, man," before heading out. Debbie stayed behind, phone still pointed at me like a weapon. "You fooled him, but I know a con artist when I see one. What are you hiding here?" "Drugs. Weapons." My fists clenched, but I kept my cool. "Mrs. Sullivan, you're trespassing. Please leave," she sneered. "Oh, I'll leave. But this isn't over. The whole board will hear about you. I'll make sure everybody knows you're a criminal squatting in our valley." And sure enough, by the time I got back inside, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree, texts, emails. HOA group chat blowing up with Debbie's live stream people speculating about what kind of crime I was running up there. Some folks had even turned Debbie's unflattering freeze frame into a meme. When you realize the trespasser owns the place. Funny, sure, but underneath it all was something darker. Suspicion, accusations, neighbors I'd never even met, suddenly asking what I was really doing out there. "Debbie says you forged those papers," one message read. The peaceful valley was turning into a battlefield. That night I got 17 texts, 4 voicemails, dozens of pings from the neighborhood app. By morning, the rumor mill had me pegged as everything from a drug dealer to a cult leader to the mastermind behind some toxic waste dump. Ryan called to check on me. "Debbie's not going to let this go, Nathan. She's already rallying the HOA to protect the community from you." I could hear the worry in his voice. When I drove home, Debbie's white Mercedes was still parked at the edge of the property, camera rolling, plotting her next move. She thought she'd won round 1, but she didn't know I was sitting on a secret that'd make her wish she'd never picked this fight. Monday morning, the whole neighborhood woke up to an HOA email blast, subject line, "Urgent Valley Security Threat, Immediate Action Required." Debbie's manifesto, full of typos and panic, painted me as some dangerous intruder. She called for residents to file anonymous complaints, send photos of my cabin, report suspicious activity. Within minutes, neighbors started sharing stories. She fined me for a blue mailbox, now this. But most people seemed to rally behind her, promising to protect the neighborhood. The mob mentality was in full swing. Tuesday, I caught Sophie Bennett, one of the quieter neighbors, works in marketing, snapping photos of my place with two other folks in tow. I walked up, jaw clenched, and asked, "Can I help you, Sophie?" She blushed. Stammered. Debbie said, "We have to document your violations or we get fined for non-compliance." "I can't afford that," she whispered. "She's out of control, Nathan." "But what can we do? She controls everything." I realized just how deep Debbie's intimidation ran. So I headed to Walter Hayes's antique shop. Walter's lived here for 40 years, knows everybody's secrets. "Nathan, that woman's been a menace since she arrived," he told me. Turns out, this wasn't just HOA power gone wild. 6 years ago, the Sullivans tried to buy my uncle's valley for some exclusive HOA retreat. When Uncle Marcus refused, Debbie took it personal, called him a selfish old fool in front of the whole town. Suddenly it clicked. This was all about revenge, and now I was her new target. Thursday, my mailbox was stuffed with nasty, anonymous letters. "Get out. We know what you're doing up there. Online people posted sightings, saw his cabin lights on at midnight. What's he hiding?" The stress was relentless. Ryan texted again. "They've filed an official complaint, inspection set for Monday. Be ready, Nathan." Even knowing I was legal, the idea of Debbie and her cronies invading my sanctuary made my blood boil. But then I thought, if Debbie was making this personal, maybe I should do the same. So I started documenting everything. Letters, texts, threatening posts. On Friday, I went back to Walter for more dirt on the Sullivans. Richard wanted to build an HOA resort, but when your uncle refused, Debbie lost it. She tried eminent domain, even forged some documents. Never forgave your family for keeping her out. That night, Sophie came to my door, hands shaking. "Debbie's paying teenagers to watch your cabin, recording everything." But I got something better. I recorded her at a meeting. On the tape, Debbie sneered, "We'll make Nathan's life so miserable he'll beg to sell." She'd finally slipped. Monday came, and so did the inspection led by Tom Bradley, a no-nonsense guy who'd seen it all. Debbie arrived in her Sunday best, clutching a big protest sign, followed by her loyal board. She tried everything, screamed about forged deeds, environmental impact, called for a second inspection. But I had all my paperwork ready, original deed, tax receipts, even Uncle Marcus's will. When a gust of wind sent Debbie's sign flying into the lake, even her board started snickering. After combing through my files, Bradley announced, "Everything is in order. This is one of the best documented properties I've seen." Debbie turned purple, shrieking, "This is corruption! Bias!" "How much did he pay you?" Bradley cut her off. "Ma'am, false complaints and harassment could get you fined. Mr. Harper, if this continues, you may have grounds for legal action." As Debbie retreated, I dropped my bombshell, "Mrs. Sullivan, I don't just own the cabin, I own the whole valley. Every acre, including the parcels your husband tried to buy." You should have seen her face when her own board realized she'd kept that secret. But Debbie wasn't done. She launched a smear campaign, flooding social media with wild stories about me planning to build hotels and strip malls complete with fake renderings. She rallied environmental groups and called in local news. Suddenly, a Save the Valley protest showed up at my gate, half of them people she'd threatened with fines if they didn't attend. Even in the rain, Debbie screamed through a megaphone, "We cannot let corporate greed destroy our valley." Never mind, she was trespassing herself. I became a pariah. Cold stares at the grocery store, threatening texts, even a news van parked outside my house. But Sophie and I kept gathering evidence. We got more recordings of Debbie bragging about running families out, hiring teens to spy, funneling HOA money into her vendetta. Turns out she'd embezzled at least $15,000, even hired a TikTok lawyer who sent me a legal threat with the line, "Justice goes viral." Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. The final showdown came at the HOA meeting standing room only, everyone waiting for fireworks. I walked up, plugged my laptop in, and played Debbie's own words for the crowd. "We'll yank Nathan out like a weed. I don't care what it takes." Dead silence, then an explosion. People sharing their stories of Debbie's harassment, board members realizing they'd been manipulated. A vote was called, and in minutes Debbie was out 47-3. But she wouldn't quit. She filed a lawsuit, hired her TikTok lawyer, accused me of viral humiliation. Real judge, though, wasn't having any of it. We dropped the recordings. The bank records even found a secret camera Debbie had installed in my cabin. Ryan bagged it for evidence. In court, Debbie crumbled the judge, dismissed her case, and the DA started prepping charges for embezzlement, stalking, breaking, and entering. A week later, I threw a barbecue for the whole community, kids running wild, parents relaxing, the valley finally at peace. I posted all the evidence for everyone to see: my deed, Debbie's confession, her arrest warrant. And then I announced 40 acres will become a free park, walking trails, picnic spots, a place for all of Pineview to enjoy. The rest stays wild, just like Uncle Marcus wanted. No hotels, no strip malls, no HOA palaces. As the sun set, Debbie stumbled up one last time, disheveled, desperate, trying to spin her old lies. But the crowd turned on her, years of anger pouring out. I handed her the final blow, an envelope with proof of her husband's old fraud and a cease and desist order. "It's over, Debbie." She tried to argue but tripped and lost her designer shoe as she ran, leaving behind a symbol of everything rotten we'd tossed out. Now the valley is ours, a true community, not a kingdom for petty tyrants. The old wounds are healing, the land is safe, and neighbors trust each other again. I know another Debbie will show up someday. There's always one in every neighborhood. But for now, peace has returned to the valley, and I finally feel at home. Justice got served with a side of barbecue sauce. So tell me, what's your take on HOA power gone wild? Have you ever had a neighbor like Debbie? Drop your stories and hot takes below. Let's get this conversation rolling.